In the realm of fantasy writing, injuries are often seen as necessary evils, plot devices to create tension or obstacles for heroes to overcome. But what if I told you they are so much more, that a single paper cut could alter the fate of kingdoms? For over 2 decades now, I've been crafting and dissecting fantasy narratives, and I've uncovered a secret weapon that can revolutionize your storytelling: the art of injury. In this video, I'll show you how to transform injuries into powerful tools for character growth, world building, and plot development. I'll share with you techniques that will make your readers feel every cut, bruise, and scar as if it were their own. But here's the kicker: not all injuries are created equal. In fact, the type of injury you choose will drastically alter the course of your story. So to make sure you pick the right one for your story, you first need to understand how injuries affect your narrative. In the vast landscape of fantasy injuries, 3 distinct realms emerge, each with the power to reshape your narrative. First, we have the physical, the visceral, tangible wounds that leave visible scars and alter bodies. These are the battle wounds, the dragon bites, the scars from dark rituals that mark your characters forever. But don't be fooled into thinking physical injuries are simple. Oh no, a well-placed scar can be a constant reminder of past failures, a source of strength, or a mark of destiny. Imagine a warrior whose damaged sword arm forces her to reinvent her fighting style, or a mage whose burned hands make spellcasting an agonizing ordeal. Then we dive into the realm of psychological injuries. These invisible wounds can be just as devastating than any physical trauma, if not more so. The weight of guilt, the scars of betrayal, the trauma of witnessing unspeakable horrors. These are the injuries that can break a hero's spirit or forge it into something unbreakable. Picture a once courageous knight now paralyzed by fear after facing an eldritch monstrosity. Or consider a charismatic leader haunted by the ghost of those who died following her cause. These psychological injuries don't just add depth to your characters, they become the crucible in which legends are forged. But we are writing fantasy, aren't we? But let's not forget the third realm, magical injuries. These are the wounds that defy laws of nature, the curses that linger beyond healing, the otherworldly afflictions that transform your characters in ways both wondrous and terrifying. Imagine a character slowly turning to stone after a basilisk's gaze, or a hero whose very soul is splintering due to dark magic. These magical injuries blur the line between blessing and curse, offering endless possibilities for character growth and plot twists. The key to mastering these 3 realms of injury lies in understanding their unique impacts. Physical injuries challenge your characters' bodies, psychological injuries test their minds, and magical injuries, well, they rewrite the very rules of your world. So as you craft your next fantasy epic, remember, a well-chosen injury isn't just a setback for your character, it's a doorway to a new dimension of storytelling, waiting for you to step through. And trust me, on the other side lies a world of narrative possibilities you've only begun to imagine. Consider this: your hero has just emerged from a brutal battle with a dragon. You know they're injured, but how do you convey that to your reader without turning your epic fantasy into a medical textbook? The secret lies in striking a delicate balance between graphic detail and evocative storytelling. You don't need to describe every drop of blood or torn sinew. Instead, focus on the details that matter, the ones that will make your readers wince in sympathy and feel the weight of the injury. Let's say your hero has a nasty burn on their arm. Instead of cataloging the blisters and charred skin, you might write, each movement sent lightning bolts of pain through his arm, the dragon's fiery breath etched into his flesh like a cruel tattoo. See how that evokes the pain without drowning in gore? But describing the injury is only half the battle. The real magic happens when you use that injury to evoke empathy. Don't just tell your readers about the wound. Show them how it affects their character. Does the hero grit their teeth with every step? Do they struggle to grip their sword? These small details bring the injury to life and make your readers feel it in their bones. At this point, you might be wondering if you should have paid more attention in your high school biology class. Don't worry, keep it simple, focus on what you know, and as long as you don't have your character's spleen peeking out of their elbow, you will be fine. But here's a pro tip. Use all the senses instead of going too deep on anatomical details. An injury isn't just about what it looks like. Describe the metallic taste of blood, the sickening sound of bones grinding together, the acid smell of burnt flesh. These sensory details will transport your readers right into your character's battered body. But remember, less is often more. You don't want to overwhelm your readers with a constant barrage of pain and suffering. Use your injury description sparingly, like a powerful spice in a complex dish. A well-placed wince or a sudden sharp pain can be more effective than pages of agonized description. Injuries aren't just plot devices or obstacles for a hero to overcome though. They're golden opportunities to reveal the true depths of your characters. Think about it. When do we truly see what someone is made of? When they're at their lowest, they're most vulnerable. And what could make a hero more vulnerable than a debilitating injury? Imagine your proud warrior princess used to solving every problem with her sword. Now, picture her with a crippling injury that leaves her unable to fight. How does she cope? Does she sink into despair? Or does she find new strengths she never knew she had? Maybe she discovers a talent for strategy, or learns the value of diplomacy. Suddenly that injury just became a catalyst for profound character growth. But it's not just about how characters overcome their injuries, it's also about how they don't. A hero who tries to push through the pain making the injury worse reveals volumes about their stubbornness or their desperation. A villain who uses the injury as an excuse for their cruel actions adds layers of complexity to their motivations. Let's look at some examples from popular fantasy. Think of Frodo in Lord of the Rings, forever changed by the wound from the Morgul blade. Or consider Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones, his entire identity shattered along with his sword hand. These injuries don't just add drama, they fundamentally reshape these characters and their arcs. Now you might be wondering, how do I balance injuries with the heroic nature of my protagonist? The key is to use the injury not as a crutch, but as a springboard. Show your hero struggling, yes, but also show them adapting, growing, becoming more than they were before. Perhaps your mage loses their sight, but in doing so awakens a deeper connection to magic. Maybe your thief's broken leg forces them to rely on their wit rather than their agility, making them an even more formidable opponent. The injury becomes not just a setback, but a transformation. In the end, it's not the injury itself that defines your character, but how they respond to it. Think of injuries as narrative dynamite. Imagine this, your hero is on the verge of confronting the Dark Lord, the moment your entire book has been building towards. But just as they are about to enter the villain's lair, they stumble, aggravating an old wound. Suddenly the final battle isn't just about skill or magic, it's a test of endurance, of pushing through pain. That simple injury just ramped up the tension tenfold. But injuries don't just add obstacles, they can completely derail your story in the most delicious ways. Picture a skilled assassin known for the steady hand and keen eye. Now give them a head injury that causes persistent double vision. Suddenly their entire modus operandi is thrown into chaos. Will they adapt? Or will they fail spectacularly? Either way, your plot just took an unexpected, intriguing detour. Injuries are also masters of subverting common fantasy tropes. We're all familiar with the prophecy of the Chosen One, right? Well, what if your Chosen One suffers an injury that seemingly disqualifies them from fulfilling their destiny? Now you've got a character grappling not just with physical pain, but with a crisis of identity and purpose. And here's where it gets really interesting. Injuries as foreshadowing or Chekhov's gun. Remember, in storytelling, if you show a gun in the first act, it better go off by the third. The same principle applies to injuries. That limp your character acquired in chapter 3? It might just be the key to their downfall, or their unexpected triumph in the climactic battle. The beauty of using injuries to drive your plot is that they feel organic. Unlike contrived coincidences or Deus Ex Machina interventions, injuries and their consequences feel real, grounded in the physical realities of your world. Now, if you found anything useful in the video so far, please consider giving it a like to help me grow the channel. Thank you. But speaking of gratitude, let's talk about healing next. In fantasy, it's tempting to wave a magic wand and heal injuries instantly. But where's the fun in that? The real storytelling gold lies in the recovery process. Consider a middle ground. Maybe magical healing accelerates the process, but doesn't eliminate it entirely. Your hero's wound might close, but they still need time to regain their strength and mobility. This approach opens up a world of storytelling possibilities. Imagine a warrior magically healed from a near-fatal wound, struggling to regain their former prowess. Their body is whole, but their confidence is shattered. That's a compelling arc right there. But let's not forget about non-magical healing. There's something powerfully human about a character slowly recovering, one painful day at a time. It grounds your fantasy world, makes it feel more real, something your readers can relate to. And it gives you time for character development, for plot twists, for the world to change around your recovering hero. The key is to make the recovery active, not passive. Your characters should be striving, learning, changing, even as their bodies heal. Consider the impact of recovery on your wider plot too. How does your hero's team function without them? Who steps up to fill the gap? Maybe new alliances are formed or hidden resentments come to light. The recovery period isn't a pause in your story, it's a transformation. And don't shy away from setbacks either. A relapse can be a powerful dramatic tool. Perhaps your character pushed too hard, too fast, undoing weeks of healing. Or maybe a seemingly healed wound flares up at the worst possible moment. These complications add tension and unpredictability to your narrative. And always remember that healing isn't just physical. Psychological recovery can be just as challenging, if not more so. A character might physically heal from a dragon's attack, but still freeze in terror at the sight of flames. By crafting realistic healing arcs, you're not just filling pages, you're adding texture and depth to your world. You're showing your readers that in your world, actions have consequences, pain has purpose, and even the mightiest heroes are at their core, vulnerably, gloriously human. But here's where it gets even more interesting. These personal journeys of healing don't exist in a vacuum. They are shaped by, and in turn shape, the very fabric of your fantasy world. Injuries aren't just personal, they are cultural. In fantasy writing, how a society deals with wounds and scars can be a powerful tool for world building. It's a window into the values, technologies, and magic systems that make your world unique. Think about it, in a world of mighty warriors, how are battle scars perceived? Are they badges of honor proudly displayed? Or are they shameful marks carefully hidden? The answer tells you volumes about your culture's attitudes towards war, bravery, and physical perfection. Now let's talk about fantasy races. How do different species in your world deal with injuries? An elvish society might view scars as tragic marring of eternal beauty, while an orcish culture could see them as essential marks of a life well fought. A shape-shifting race might have rituals around carrying scars even when in a different form. But it goes even deeper than that. How advanced is the medicine in your world? A society with highly developed healing magic might view lasting injuries as rare and tragic. Conversely, a world without such magic might have developed incredible non-magical medical techniques out of necessity. Consider the societal roles of the injured too. In some cultures, warriors too injured to fight might be discarded. In others, they might be elevated to positions of leadership or teaching. Imagine a world where battle scars are fashion statements. Oh, this slash? It's a vintage darling, last season's dragon. Injuries can also be a window into your world's class structure. Do only the wealthy have access to magical healing? Are there fantasy equivalents of workers' compensation or disability support? The answers to these questions flesh out your world's social dynamics. And let's not forget about religious and magical aspects either. Perhaps some injuries are seen as divine punishment, while others are viewed as blessings. Magical tattoos that heal wounds but leave significant scars could be a cultural rite of passage. Some cultures might even intentionally scar themselves as part of magical rituals or to mark significant life events. And healing traditions themselves are a rich vein for world building. One culture might rely on herb lore or natural healing, while another might have industrialized magical healing factories. Imagine a society where healing is performed through complex group rituals, or another where the injured are expected to heal themselves through sheer force of will. By thinking through how different cultures in your world view and deal with injuries, you're not just adding flavor, you're creating depth. You're showing your readers that your world exists beyond the main characters, that it has history, complexity, and a life of its own. And here's the real magic. Once you've established these cultural attitudes towards injury, you can use them to create conflict, drive plots, and deepen character arcs. A character proudly bearing scars from their culture suddenly thrust into a society that shuns such marks? That's a story waiting to happen. But we're not done just yet. There still is the interplay between wounds and the very fabric of magic itself. First, consider how magic might affect the nature of injuries themselves. In a world suffused with magical energy, wounds might not behave as expected. Perhaps they glow, change color, or even move across the body. Imagine a character whose magical burn slowly spreads, turning their skin to living flame. That's not just an injury, it's a ticking clock, a source of constant tension. But it's not all doom and gloom. Magic could also mitigate injuries in unique ways. For instance, a fire mage might cauterize their wounds instantly, preventing blood loss. Or an earth mage's skin hardens at the point of impact. These aren't just cool powers, they are opportunities to showcase the fundamental nature of your magic system. And now flip the script. How do injuries affect one's ability to use magic? In many systems, magic requires precise gestures or incantations. An injury that impairs speech or movement could severely handicap a mage. This creates wonderful opportunities for character growth and creative problem solving. Picture a mage learning to cast with their offhand or developing a new style of magic that doesn't require physical movement. Now, let's revisit that seemingly insignificant paper cut mentioned at the start of the video. In a world where blood is the key component of powerful magic, even a paper cut could have far-reaching consequences. A drop of blood from the right person at the right magical nexus could inadvertently trigger ancient spells, awaken slumbering deities, or tear open portals to other realms. Suddenly the tiniest of injuries become the catalyst for an epic adventure, proving that in a well-crafted fantasy world, no wound is too small to change the fate of kingdoms. And when doing so, of course, don't forget about magical injuries themselves. Curses, magical diseases, or wounds from mythical creatures could interact with your magic system in unique ways. A curse that feeds off magical energy, growing stronger the more the victim tries to heal it. That's a problem that forces characters to think outside the box. Lastly, consider how a society's approach to magic shapes their treatment of injuries. A culture that views magic as a finite resource might ration magical healing, while one that sees magic as a gift from the gods might consider it a sacred duty to heal the wounded. These attitudes drive conflicts and shape character motivations. So by now it should be clear that injuries, when handled well, are not story breakers. They're story makers. But for an injury to occur, you usually need someone to cause it though. So check out this video here where I walk you through the captivating world of creepy villains and explain why you should considering adding one to your story.